Today let's talk about absolute value. Absolute value is the distance from 0 on the number line. Okay, that's the formal definition. The distance from 0 on the number line. So let's look at an actual number line. Okay, so we covered in a previous video, these numbers that you see are integers. You have some negatives on the left side, you have positives on the right, and you have 0 in the center, and 0 is neither positive nor negative. So this number line shows you the first 10 positive and negative integers, and these arrows say that these numbers can continue infinitely. So when we're talking about absolute value being the distance from 0 on a number line, each of these numbers that you see is a fixed space, a fixed amount from 0. Okay, so absolute value, the symbol in math is 2 vertical bars like this. Okay, so if you saw, for example, these 2 bars and the number 3, this right here would be the absolute value of 3. Okay, that's what this means. Mathematically, this means the absolute value of 3. Or -9. If you saw the 2 vertical bars with -9 between them, this would be the absolute value of -9. Okay, so that's what these 2 bars mean. Now, the distance from 0. Okay, if we're looking at the absolute value of 3, 3 would be right here. How far is it from 0? Well, 1, 2, 3. Right? The absolute value of 3, the distance 3 is from 0 is 3. What about -9? What's the absolute value of -9? Well, we can go from -9 to 0. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The absolute value of -9 is 9. Okay? Now what if I asked you, what is the absolute value of 2? What is the absolute value of 2? Well, it'd be just 2, right? What about the absolute value of -4? Okay, 2 vertical bars, absolute value of -4. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, you may have noticed something, okay? The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of -9 is 9. The absolute value of 2 is 2. And the absolute value of -4 is 4. So some of you have probably noticed that the absolute value is simply whatever the number in between the bars is, but make it positive. So if we have a +3, the absolute value is +3. +2, the absolute value is +2. But if you have a -4, the absolute value is simply a +4. And if you have -9, the absolute value is a +9. Okay, so absolute value is always going to be a positive number. That's important to remember, okay? As long as you're not talking about 0, right? The absolute value of 0 would just be 0. But every other number, the absolute value is whatever that number is, just the positive of it. Okay? All right, so let's just do a couple of more examples here, okay? So I'm going to choose a couple of, for all of these, we're going to try to find the absolute values, okay? About a 2, a -5, and then absolute value of 7, and absolute value of a -3, and then an absolute value of -10, and the absolute value of +10. And lastly, how about the absolute value of 0 and the absolute value of -4. Okay, let's just do these real quick, okay? So all of these are absolute values. So all of these, we want to know how far from 0 are these numbers. All right, so the absolute value of 2, +2 right here, 2, right? It's just going to be whatever the number on the inside is, but the positive. What about -3 then? Well, even without looking at the number line, we could just say the absolute value of -3 has to be a +3. And then if you wanted to check, you could see 1, 2, 3. What about absolute value of 10? That's just 10, right? 10 is 10 away from 0. Absolute value of 7 is 7. Absolute value of -4 is going to be +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. +4. Now, what about this one here? The absolute value of 0. How far is 0 from 0? Just be 0. There you go, okay? And the absolute value of 0 is 0. This is the only time where the absolute value is neither positive nor negative. Because remember, 0, the number 0, is not negative and is also not positive. Okay, so 0 is a very unique number. Now lastly, the absolute value of -5, that's going to be +5, right? -5 is 5 units away from 0. And the absolute value of -10 is going to be a +10. Okay. So now here's where we get a little bit trickier. If I showed you this versus this, this top inequality right here, is this true or false? So let's see, -5. Remember, when we have a negative sign, the bigger the number, the smaller the value. So is -5 smaller than -4? Well, on a number line, -5 is to the left of -4, so this is true. This part right here, that's true. Right? -5 is smaller than -4. But what about this one? Is the absolute value of -5 less than the absolute value of -4? If we're taking absolute value, then the absolute value of -5 would be a +5, and the absolute value of a -4 would be a +4. So this inequality, it evaluates to 5 is less than 4, which is false. Okay, so make sure you understand what exactly absolute value does, because it changes the value. Okay, every negative becomes a positive when you're doing absolute value. Okay? So, what if we wanted to order then? What if we wanted to order -4, -9, 6, the absolute value of 4, and -5? What if we wanted to order these from least to greatest? Okay, well, the first thing you would do is let's evaluate these two absolute values. Okay, so negative 4 is negative 4. The absolute value of negative 9 is positive 9. 6 is 6. The absolute value of 4 is 4. And then negative 5 is negative 5. Okay, so from least to greatest, we would, let's see, between negative 5 and negative 4, the smaller one is a negative 5. Okay, and then we have negative 4. And then 4, 6, 9. Okay, so this would be least to greatest. All right, one other important thing to remember when you're doing absolute value is the order of operations. Okay, PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, and roots, or radicals. Multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Absolute value, remember the absolute value notation in math is these bars, right? A number inside vertical bars. You should treat these bars as if they were parentheses. Okay? So absolute value goes first in the order of operations. So, if we were looking at this, 4 plus 3 times a negative 6 divided by 2. If you saw this expression and you wanted to simplify it, you would do this part first. So treat absolute value as if they were parentheses. Do these first in the order of operations, okay? So you would say negative 6, the absolute value is positive 6. That would be your first step. 4 plus 3 times 6 divided by 2. And then from this point on, you would just do the order of operations like normal. Like you could do 3 times 6, 18, divided by 2 is 9. Or 6 divided by 2 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. 4 plus 9, it would eventually evaluate to 13. Okay, but just remember the absolute value is the first step. And let me do one more example of this, of order of operations. 10 minus a negative 3 times 5 plus 1. Okay, so order of operations, okay, PEMDAS. Absolute value or like parentheses, is like parentheses. So this is first. So we do 10 minus the absolute value of a negative 3 is a positive 3. Okay, so the minus is minus. This becomes 3 times 5 plus 1. Next is the multiplication. So we have 10 minus 15 plus 1. 10 minus 15 is a negative 5 plus 1, right? Negative 5 plus 1 is a negative 4.